Okay, so you're pouring all this dedication into your weight training, right? You're hitting the gym, perfecting your reps. But what if the real secret, the key to unlocking your progress, isn't just about the weights? What if it's actually right there on your plate?
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at the absolute essentials of nutrition specifically for weight training, and we're getting it straight from an expert source.
Yeah, our mission here is to really uncover the crucial timing and what should actually be in your meals. We want to separate the facts from maybe some common myths out there and give you some real actionable insights, stuff you can use to, well, fuel your gains.
For sure. We're going to unpack what seem to be the three most critical meals of the day for anyone lifting weights. We'll also look at how often you should probably be eating and even touch on what to eat before you finally hit the hay.
Okay, sounds good. Let's unpack this then. So, this expert source, he has a pretty strong stance here. Basically, if you're weight training and not focusing on specific meals,
Mm.
you're kind of doing your body an injustice.
Yeah, he really hammers that home. He singles out three absolutely crucial meals.
Yeah.
The rest, he also calls them fillers in a basic structured diet.
And that applies regardless of your specific goal too, right? Like whether you're competing, trying to bulk up or get lean.
Exactly. That's what he argues.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how direct he is about it. He just, cuts right to the chase. Says these meals have a way bigger impact on your body's ability to recover, grow, and perform.
Right. It's not just about calories in, calories out in a general sense. It's strategic fueling.
Strategic fueling, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, so the first big insight, and maybe the most profound one he shares, is all about breakfast. It's not just, another meal. He frames it as the absolute uh, metabolic ignition switch for your entire day.
The ignition switch, I like that.
He basically says if you miss it, your metabolism is just dead in the water after sleeping.
Makes sense when you think about the long fast overnight.
Right, so he stresses you need to kickstart it immediately. And not just with anything, but with a calorie-dense meal, something that tells your body, okay, time to ramp up energy production and shift out of that catabolic state, the muscle breakdown state.
Precisely. After, 7, 8, 9 hours of fasting during sleep, your body needs that clear signal. Switch from breaking down to building up. And it's not just about feeling alert. It's literally setting your metabolic rhythm for the whole day ahead.
So what does he recommend for breakfast? He emphasizes a mix, right? High-quality protein.
Yep. Things like egg whites, maybe a couple of whole eggs thrown in.
And then complex carbs that are easy to digest. He mentions oatmeal, even cream of rice.
Yeah, the choices seem very deliberate, focused on sustained energy release without causing, digestive issues first thing.
He also throws in options like turkey bacon or flourless bread. Again, seems focused on digestibility and nutrient quality.
He does mention something interesting, too, about sometimes doing fasted cardio in the morning.
Yeah, he touches on that briefly.
But he clarifies it pretty quickly, right? Saying it's more for his own mental prep and routine.
Yeah, exactly. He makes it clear it's not some universal rule you have to follow for fat loss or body composition. More like a personal discipline thing for him.
Okay, good clarification. So it's not a nutritional must-do for everyone.
Right. So, moving on from breakfast, the metabolic kickstart, the next really critical meal he points to is the one you eat before you train.
The pre-workout meal.
He suggests eating this about roughly 1 hour before your workout.
1 hour. That timing seems pretty specific.
He says it's key for having readily available fuel when you actually start lifting.
Okay, connecting that to the bigger picture. It's all about maximizing the energy that's right there, ready to go.
Right.
And easily digestible protein too, right? To support the immediate demands of the workout.
Yeah, you want fuel that hits your bloodstream efficiently, not something heavy just sitting in your stomach while you're trying to squat.
Makes total sense. So what does he suggest for this meal?
Well, he recommends something that isn't too high in fat, protein-wise, and then some sort of quicker carbohydrate source.
Quicker carbs.
His go-to. Chicken and white rice.
Ah, white rice. I can hear some listeners now thinking, wait, shouldn't it be brown rice?
Exactly. That's the common wisdom, isn't it? Brown is always better. But he specifically mentions white rice. He even says he's, never eaten brown rice.
Okay, that's definitely going against the grain, so to speak. What's the reasoning there from his perspective?
Well, you hit on it earlier, the speed.
Rapid absorption for fuel.
Yeah. While brown rice has benefits, like fiber, for this specific pre-workout window, he's prioritizing how fast those carbs become available energy.
So white rice offers that quicker glycogen replenishment, making sure your muscles have fuel ready for intense work. It's a strategic choice then, even if it bucks the trend.
Right. And he also advises against tougher proteins here, like steak, Prefers things like egg whites, maybe the protein shake, fish, turkey breast.
Things that digest easier.
Yeah. He mentions chicken just happens to be something that's always available and easy for him to prep.
Gotcha. So, speed and efficiency for immediate performance.
Okay. Then we move into the post-workout phase. This is where he says things can get a bit tricky.
Key.
How so? Well, lots of people go for protein shakes right after the gym, right? Often mixed with quick carbs, Gatorade, a carb drink, maybe fruit.
Standard practice for many.
He suggests the best time for supplements like protein or BCAAs, branched chain amino acids.
The building blocks.
Yeah, those. Is either during the workout or immediately after, especially if you maybe didn't get enough calories in beforehand.
Okay, so intra-workout or immediately post?
He personally sometimes sips on aminos during training if he feels he needs it. Says it supports muscle preservation, provides direct energy.
Right, that immediate post-workout window. It's always talked about as being crucial for kickstarting recovery, muscle repair.
Yeah, you've depleted your energy stores, stressed the muscle fibers. Getting nutrients in fast is paramount.
Makes sense. You need to flip the switch back to build mode.
And here's where it gets really interesting, maybe even a bit provocative.
Go on.
He's even used Coca-Cola for simple sugars post-workout.
Coca-Cola. Wow, okay. That definitely challenges the clean eating mantra.
Right. So what does that tell us about just how high a priority rapid carbohydrate delivery is in that specific window?
That's a fantastic point to dig into. Using something like Coke, while definitely not a, everyday recommendation for everyone, it absolutely underscores the extreme importance he places on fast-acting glucose hitting your system immediately post-workout.
To kickstart recovery and muscle glycogen replenishment.
Exactly. It highlights the principle that in very specific high-demand situations, the speed of delivery can sometimes temporarily outweigh the usual clean eating rules for an immediate physiological need.
So is this something our listeners should actually consider, drinking Coke after the gym?
Probably not as a default, I'd say. For most people, a dedicated carb drink, maybe some fruit, is likely a more balanced and sustainable approach.
Yeah.
But the core lesson is absolutely the urgency of getting simple sugar in fast. The Coke example just drives that point home quite dramatically.
He mentions his typical post-workout shake, too. Whey protein, maybe 40, 50 grams, depending on body weight, and then 50 to 60 grams of simple sugars alongside it.
Right, getting both the protein for repair and the carbs for replenishment simultaneously.
And crucially, he doesn't stop there. Within about an hour after that shake,
Okay.
he follows up with another whole food meal.
So the shake is the immediate hit, then a proper meal follows soon after.
Yes. Often chicken and rice again, or something else that digests relatively quickly.
So those three meals,
Yeah.
breakfast, pre-workout, post-workout, including the shake and the follow-up meal, those are the non-negotiables in his book.
The absolute core pillars, exactly.
Okay, so we've established those pillars. Breakfast for the metabolic start, pre-workout for immediate fuel, post-workout for recovery. Cornerstones nailed down. But, beyond what you eat at those key times, the when and how often you fuel your body across the entire day, that seems equally important, maybe even more so for continuous progress.
Yeah, that brings us nicely to the whole question of overall meal frequency, doesn't it?
It does. How often should you actually be eating?
Well, our expert states that basically every meal should have some form of protein. Fish, turkey, chicken, egg whites, shakes, whatever.
Protein anchor in every meal. Got it.
And then carbs are adjusted based on, your individual body composition and goals.
Makes sense.
When he was training full on, he says he was eating every 2 hours, like clockwork, sometimes even force feeding.
Wow, every 2 hours. That's demanding.
Yeah, and he stresses that you should never really stretch meals beyond a 3-hour window, max.
3 hours max. That's still a pretty tight schedule for most people juggling work and life.
It really is.
What's the rationale, though? Why so frequent?
The idea is to keep a steady supply of nutrients, especially amino acids from the protein, flowing to your muscles.
To prevent the body from going too long without fuel and potentially breaking down muscle tissue, keeping it in anabolic or muscle-building state more consistently.
Exactly, and keeping the metabolism fired up, humming along all day.
Okay. Consistent nutrient supply, preventing catabolism, promoting anabolism.
He also advises against snacking between these structured meals, prefers focusing on whole, complete meals.
Right, so it's not about constant grazing, but rather distinct, balanced meals timed relatively close together.
Yeah, For an average person, he suggests aiming for maybe 5 to 6 meals a day, depending on how long you're awake, your sleep patterns.
5 to 6 meals.
It's interesting, though, even he, now that he's retired from competing, admits that life gets in the way sometimes.
Oh, how so?
He mentions his current sleep is maybe only 5 hours, which he knows isn't ideal for muscle mass or getting lean.
Right. Recovery suffers.
And his meal frequency has dropped, too. Now maybe only 4 meals a day. He even admits sometimes spacing them out too far, like 5 hours, just because of work or being busy.
That's actually quite relatable. Even the expert isn't perfect 100% of the time outside of contest prep.
Exactly. So does that suggest there's maybe a bit more flexibility for the average listener, someone who isn't prepping for a bodybuilding show?
I think it absolutely does. It highlights that while these are the optimal guidelines, especially for peak performance or physique goals, the underlying principles are what matter most. Consistency is still key, hitting those crucial macros, especially around training. But maybe the precise 2-hour clockwork isn't as critical if you're not pushing to that elite level.
Just avoid those really long gaps where your body might start, eating into muscle for fuel.
Exactly. Avoid prolonged fasting periods during your active day. He does emphasize, though, that frequency really depends on your goals. If you were training for a contest, then yeah, every 2.5, 3 hours becomes much more critical.
Right. The intensity of the goal dictates the rigidity of the schedule.
Makes sense.
Okay, so key takeaway. Those 3 main meals are vital, but consistent fueling every, let's say, 2, 3 hours or so is really important for making optimal progress, especially if you're training hard.
Agreed. Consistent protein-focused meals.
All right, finally, let's touch on that last meal of the day. What does he recommend eating before bed?
The pre-sleep meal.
He mentions he was always a big protein and carbohydrate eater before bed.
Interesting. Carbs before bed. Some people actively avoid that.
Yeah, but his approach seems to be about sustained nutrient release overnight, supporting recovery while you sleep.
Okay, fueling the recovery process during the fast.
He liked things like oatmeal or something similar, sustaining foods.
Slow digesting carbs, maybe.
Seems like it. He specifically avoided typical pasta or breads unless they were those specific types like flourless or Ezekiel bread. Again, that focus on digestibility and quality.
Always coming back to nutrient quality and how the body handles it.
Yeah. The goal was just to eat something that would kind of sustain him through the night, keep him feeling satisfied and fueled.
What about protein sources?
Mainly clean sources. Egg whites, turkey, fish, chicken, standard lean proteins.
Okay.
Interestingly, he wasn't afraid of red meat before bed sometimes, especially when he was really trying to get lean but hold on to muscle.
Red meat, even when leaning out.
Yeah, he reasoned his metabolism was running so fast at that point it could handle it, and it perhaps helped with satiety or sustained protein release.
Another slightly unconventional take, but logical within his context of a super high metabolism during intense phases.
The main thing he stresses is clean food. And crucially, don't necessarily be afraid of carbs before bed.
Especially if you train late.
Exactly. If you train in the evening, those carbs are pretty vital for replenishing the glycogen stores you just hammered during your workout.
Right, the body needs to restock, regardless of the time on the clock.
So it's about fueling recovery even overnight.
Okay, that wraps up the key meal strategies pretty well. So just to recap quickly for everyone listening, we've really covered the absolute pillars of a solid weight training diet based on this expert's view. Starting strong with breakfast, that metabolic ignition. Getting the timing and composition of your pre-workout fuel right for performance. And then being smart about post-workout recovery, that immediate shake plus the follow-up meal to kickstart repair.
Yeah, and then we looked at the importance of consistency, that meal frequency throughout the day for sustained growth.
Right, aiming for roughly every 2-3 hours if possible.
And finally, how to approach that last meal of the day to support overnight recovery.
A really comprehensive look at fueling for weight training.
Definitely. So thinking about everything we've discussed, all the emphasis our expert puts on these specific meals and timings, here's a final thought for you listening. What's maybe one immediate adjustment you could make? Maybe to your daily eating schedule, or perhaps what's in one of those key meals? Something that could genuinely help kickstart your metabolism or optimize your recovery starting, like today.